20. As I started my second bath, I found scratches across an arm from my encounter against the wolf. In the adrenaline-fueled rush of combat, I'd hardly even noticed them. Adrenal stimulation. Crazy AI. The beast I'd rolled under must have clawed me. Another reason the wounds had gone unnoticed is I'd disabled my combat log to focus on my target. While my HUD displayed floating numerals above the heads of my enemies and pets during combat to represent gains and losses, the only way to see my own real-time changes in health was using the log. A quick check of my interface revealed a solution in the form of a scrolling, real-time reflection of damage taken at the top center of the screen. It even showed me a little text readout when I activated it. Since I hadn't brought a health potion, I left the scratches to heal on their own. The healing process seemed slow, though I saw no icons representing any debuffs. I chastised myself for leaving my bag behind, with a stern reminder that noobs don't live long in Enora. Luckily, the minor wounds faded as my HP recovered in the next couple minutes. If Roshan were here, she'd have fixed me right up with her flash heal or light heal. My fear for Roshan was furthered by the prevailing sense I'd failed her. After she'd saved me in the dark wood when I fell in battle, before my soul could be sucked away, no less. Then I'd left her flailing in the wind, instead of clicking 2 buttons in my interface. 2 little ticks. My mistake consumed me as my new pet led me out of the forest. Like Click, the wolf knew where I wanted to go, which was one way Enora ignored realism. We stepped out of the tree line and onto the grassy rise forming the shoulder of the road, only having missed the cart by about 50 yards. I peered left to the south and spotted its dim form beyond the curtains of rain that soaked me again as I stepped out from beneath the cover of the trees. I'd allowed my vision spell to expire lest I'd come to rely on it. One never knew when an enemy might silence me and render spells useless. My eyes adjusted to darkness like they did in the old world, and it lent me a sense of normalcy to use them. That's us, buddy. The wolf matched my meandering pace as we walked toward the cart. A low growl rose among the pouring raindrops, and I peered down. The wolf hunched low, now creeping toward the cart, its nose crinkling, but I wondered if it could detect anything other than damp, muddy grass. Do you smell a kitty? Asked Destiny. I laughed at my horrible joke. It broke my self-deprecating thoughts. She'd probably kill me if she heard that and knew about cats in my world. Destiny smelled no different than Priya or me as far as I'd noticed. She smelled kind of flowery, in a kind of contradiction to her muscular form. The wolf growled again, louder this time. I raised my head and squinted through the rain, and I cast Inner Illumination. My heart jumped into my throat at the sight of 2 huddled masses lying in the road. Oh no! I left them exposed. They slept warm and cozy in the cart, and I didn't tell them I was leaving. What are we, at a La Quinta? Go! I yelled at the wolf over the rain. He took off, his paws spewing mud against my pants as he tore across the slippery terrain as if it didn't faze him. I followed while bringing up my HUD. I feared when I flipped to my companions tab that I'd find my friends represented as bloody wet heaps or dimmed corpses because they'd died and resurrected out of range. I almost slipped in the mud as I slid to a halt. The image representing my half-wood elf companion revealed her curled up like a baby, pushing soft breaths through her nose. My chest filled with an airy elation as a breath I hadn't realized I was holding exploded from my mouth. Destiny also seemed fine. Are the images outdated? Have they not refreshed? The horse harnessed to the wagon shuffled as the wolf approached. It occurred to me that I'd grabbed the water skins and left without considering the animal's collapsible shelter, but I hadn't planned on a fight to the death with a pack of wolves. Either way, in the downpour I found yet another reason to curse myself. Destiny cared for the animal in a way I hadn't, and I could have taken the opportunity to win her affections by covering Pickney. Forget the fact I could have served the horse. The wolf ignored the equine giant with the mud-covered white coat I'd seen Destiny wash and brush the previous evening. I gripped my bow and blinked rain from my eyes as my new beast sniffed one mass, then paced to the second. It nudged at the second with his nose, then turned and peered back at me. The horse nickered as I rambled past, and I ran a hand along its thick body. It seemed to calm when the wolf showed it no interest. I shoved the first figure's shoulder with my boot. It rolled sideways on the muddy road and flopped onto its back. A man with a bald head who wore several earrings on his right ear stared into death's oblivion. His throat gaped in a wide slit from ear to ear. That's the guy who bowed out when we killed his boss in town. My shoulders dropped, and I threw the other figure a cursory glance, but no more. My thoughts jumped to the occupants of the cart. Please. It didn't matter that my interface showed them alive and well, cuddled together. I had to lay eyes on them before I would relax. Jumping up onto the rider's bench, I noticed a muddy patch the rain hadn't yet washed away. My heart pounding against my ribs, I peered through the slit in the cover. A tear of relief welled up in one eye as a smile exploded across my face. Priya, my half-wood elf, dark caster, lay in the embrace of her new Michonne companion. Oh, thank you, I said to the world that was Enora. Thank you. I'll never leave them again. The Cine moaned. She scooted her pelvis closer to Priya, causing the shorter woman to smile in her slumber. Her tail twitched and rolled over her hips to land on the half-elf's waist. I withdrew my head from the slit and climbed down, off the bench. My boots splatted in the mud. I set my hands on my hips and stood between the two corpses as I assessed the scene. Where did you come from? What were you doing? And how did you end up dead? My head jerked in all directions, seeing a culprit in the storm. All I found was the tree line and rocks that lined one side of the road and would serve as solid hiding places on one side, and the open fields leading to more forest on the other. Hey, bud, I said to the wolf. Prowl around the cart in the nearby trees. See what you can find, eh? A low growl emitted from the wolf as he set off behind the cart with his nose low to the muddy earth, his wide-set ears perked high. Pet stance, patrol. As I watched its thick body covered in thick spiked hair disappear around the cart, I mused at how awesome it was to have a wolf. While I loved Click for the part she played in getting me through the dark levels, a wolf was a freaking wolf. The women wouldn't have been sleeping if they had anything to do with this. So, who? I knelt and set 2 fingers beneath the chin of the man closest to the riding bench and pushed his head back. Clean cut. A narrow blade. Deep. Quick. What do you think, boy? The wolf paced next to me and sniffed the corpse. I peered at the soles of the dead man's boots and glanced over my shoulder. Looks like this one was about to mount the bench but never made it. I swiveled my hand and peered at the other form. A compact blade lay near him in the mud. Maybe he'd planned to cut his way through the back, like they planned to take us from both sides. Depressions along the side of the trail grabbed my attention and I stepped closer for a look. Each was about 1 foot in diameter. Puddles had formed inside and rain splatted in little droplets. Horse hooves? The imprints trailed off into the grass a ways up the road, so whoever had been here took their leave after this bit of business was complete. So, I turned back to the victims. I patted the first one's chest and split open his patterned leather coat. A thick wool shirt that must have itched to high heaven was all I found beneath. It was soaked in blood to his belly, his life force having spewed from an artery in his neck, forming a V in the undergarment. I yanked his belt. You have found Iron Sword of Maiming, Level 9, Slot, Weapon, Type, One-Handed Sword, Quality, Uncommon, Durability, 37 of 50, 14 to 17 damage, +2 bleed effect when dual wielding. The system asked if I'd like to change my class to fighter. I dismissed it. Sliding his coat aside revealed a second identical sword on another sheath. I withdrew the swords and held them up in the rain, getting a better look. Not bad. No nicks or dents. Could use a sharpening. I gripped and swung them, checking their balance. You have learned the skill, Dual Wield Swords. Dual Wield Swords. Allows a combatant to wield 2 one-handed swords. Offhand weapons suffer 40% accuracy and damage penalties. Efficiency increases with weapon skill rank. Your dual-wielding rank is now 1. Would you like to change your class to Assassin? So, in Enora, dual-wielding applied to particular weapons. If I wielded 2 daggers, stat advantages applied to that weapon type. Now I could also dual-wield swords, and my success would be determined by my sword skill. That probably meant I'd have to gain another ability if I wanted to wield 2 maces, etc. But it also meant I could dual-wield swords as an assassin. I patted the dead man's sleeves and pants legs. Something jingled. A pouch strung to the right side of his belt near where I'd found the second sword. The raging static of rain softened in my ears as I paced back to his companion while loosening the drawstring and shoving 2 fingers into the pouch. Cool metal graced my fingertips. I shook it next to my ear and coins jingled. I tied the pouch to my belt and knelt next to the other corpse. Yep, he's one of the guys from town, too. I matched the knife caked in mud beside him to an empty sheath on his belt. A similar blade sat in a sheath on his opposite hip. After patting him down in vain from shoulder to shins, I paced back up the muddy road to the spot where the wolf and I had exited the woods to retrieve the water skins. I set them on the riding bench just as Priya's blonde head popped through the canvas slit.
"Jem,"
she uttered, knuckling sleep from an eye.
"why have we stopped? You tired? Should I keep watch?"
I'm in one piece, but things are amiss. She perked up, pushing the canvas to either side. Aside from the cloth she tied around her lower pieces and knotted at one hip, she was naked as the day she was born.
"Amiss?"
She crossed her arms and rubbed her shoulders. Rain splatter bounced off the canvas and misted her flesh. My woods woman shivered. Her eyes fell on the water skins. An eyebrow ticked up.
"You going for water?"
My face scrunched up. I already went, then I came back to find this. She leaned forward and her eyes flared open.
"Is that a man?"
She crawled over the edge of the cart and onto the bench, covering herself as if the corpse would see.
"A dead man?"
Dress first, you'll catch a cold. Will she? That was an interesting question. She ignored me.
"Where did he come from? I'm glad you came back before he—"
She glared at me.
"You left without telling us?"
The awe painted on her face made my head drop. I didn't realize the mistake until it was too late, Priya. I'm sorry. I just didn't think it through. Getting water while you slept was, well... Priya sighed as she glared down at the corpse.
"Learn your lessons."
She knuckled my shoulder. I will, I swear it. When I saw them there, I panicked. I thought my heart would stop at the thought of you and Destiny. The half-elf's expression softened.
"At least you've returned before things turn for the worse. Solara guides us still."
That's the thing. I didn't kill him. I thrust out a finger. Nor him. Priya scurried across the bench, one knee barely missing the clop of mud I assumed had come from a dead man's boot, then peered around the side of the cart.
"You didn't? Then who did?"
I shrugged. I have my suspicions, but they make little sense. Clean throat cuts.
"The elf? Giles?"
Yeah, but I had this strong sense he stays close to town for a reason, like he's hiding out. Maybe he sent a friend. But the barbarian would have left a much bigger slit.
"Are there any more dead people?"
Just the 2, the best I can see. The horse grunted and purple light grabbed my attention. Priya dropped her arms from her chest and twisted them into claws as she sneered. Electricity crackled between her fingers as they became washed in its glow. The wolf growled at her. I showed Priya my palms. Whoa, he's with me. My new pet. Suspicion crossed Priya's features. Then they morphed into something else as she glanced around. Maybe confusion. The glow surrounding her hands slipped away.
"Where's Clicky?"
Clicky? I dismissed her.
"Humph. What would Click think of your new pet?"
I doubt Click will ever know the difference. I turned and peered into the glowing yellow eyes of my wolf. All clear? The wolf didn't answer, but I took that it returned with an air of calm that the surrounding area was devoid of threats. Priya's eyes locked on the corpse again as rain coursed down her blonde curls and sent little rivers down her bare shoulders and arms. I gripped her knee, diverting her attention from the dead. I think we're safe for now. If you have to sit out here, at least put on your robe. It's made for the weather. She dropped her butt on the wet bench, either oblivious or uncaring about wetting her tied cloth. Then she leaned down and held out an open hand. Her voice adopted a soothing tone as she lowered its timbre and spoke to the animal.
"Submit, my friend, and we shall conquer the world."
She'd first enamored herself to Click with the same soothing tone in the forest, though the words were different. They reflected a new disposition entirely. The wolf peered up at me and took a hesitant step forward. Priya's back was suddenly washed in a golden glow reflecting off the tarp behind her. "Did you activate your ward?" I asked. Priya raised a shoulder in a half shrug.
I figured it couldn't hurt. Why?
I shook my head. I didn't realize it was an active ability. She clicked her tongue as she reached her outstretched fingers toward the wolf as it placed its front paws on the bench.
Like I said the day we met, I can't always control it in daylight, but it's still dark out. Oh, weren't you paying attention?
Though she spoke to me, she never broke her gaze with the animal.
Now you know.
You might as well get used to her, I said, scratching the beast's wet head between its ears. She's with me for the long haul.
I sure am,
Priya said in the same soothing tone. The wolf sniffed her fingers and lowered its head.
You're wet, baby, Priya crooned. We should wash that mud off your paws and bring you inside.
She tilted her head up.
Why wouldn't Click know about your wolf?
What? Oh, I doubt I can summon 2 pets at the same time. It's unlikely they'll ever meet.
That's strange. Why couldn't you have 2 pets at the same time?
Again, game mechanics. Same conundrum. Time for a new lie. I'm not sure how it works. I have this strange sense that when I summon the pets from the, spirit world, they form a special bubble of sorts here. To summon Click, I have to empty the space occupied by this one. Here, I'll try. Priya perked up, her eyes awash in that curious light that came when venturing into new territory and exploring new experiences. She crossed her arms, still showing no sign she'd reached for her clothes and cover herself against the mist splashing off the canvas cover of the cart. I brought up my interface to watch for messages and raised my hand. Focusing on the bench next to Priya, I peered at Click. A message popped up. You must dismiss unnamed wolf to summon another pet. Yeah, I got a prompt. I have to dismiss the wolf first. Priya slapped her hands on her knees, and I sensed her disappointment at not having gotten a show.
Well, I guess you can't have everything.
I peered down at the wolf. Water tamped down its mane, causing the black top coat on its back to shimmer in the glow of my inner illumination spell. The white hair beneath was dingy. That gives me an idea, though. I dismissed the wolf. Priya perked up again and seemed to enjoy the display. The wolf peered down at its legs as they became transparent. Then it peered up at me and whined.
Aw,
Priya said.
He didn't want to leave us. Such a mean master you are.
Bah! Raising my hand, I aimed it at the spot next to her on the bench. As a glow traced and engulfed my fingers, Priya leaned backward and flared her eyelids. What do you think? I'm going to dismiss you as well? Her mouth gaped as she pawed her chest.
Can you do that?
I shook my head and chuckled. No, Priya, it doesn't work like that. Only pets can be dismissed. You aren't my pet. You're my fucking soulmate. Her mouth closed and her eyelids dropped.
I like it when you call me your
Priya turned as the glow in my hand faded and the wolf materialized on the bench next to her. She jumped and slid toward the end of the bench. But then she giggled and lost her hand in the wolf's fur. It's dry, clean fur. How about that? I asked. Dry and clean. That's awesome. There was a rustling behind Priya, followed by a mew. My eyes jerked to the parting canvas just fast enough to see Destini's face disappear back into the wagon. Her voice bellowed from inside. Fear not, love. I will run through this beast. I guess she addressed Priya. Metal rubbed leather from beyond the tarp as she unsheathed her short sword. Don't stab my wolf, I called. It's my pet. Though the wolf's lips drew back as its instinct warned of danger, Priya kept her firm grasp of its mane and the ward glowed anew. It was almost comical. The wolf stood taller than me on its hind legs. The word beast was a more than accurate moniker, but its tongue lolled from its lips as it sighted the glow emanating from behind Priya.
Shh, baby, that's our sister, Destiny. Be calm, my love.
To my utter shock, Priya leaned forward and kissed the wolf right on its nose. The wolf's teeth vanished, and it licked its upper lip twice. It then tilted its head to one side and licked Priya on the chin. She chuckled and pushed its snout down. The animal pawed at her hand. The tarp peeled to one side, and one of Destini's green eyes appeared in the slit.
It's okay, babe. Come meet, Wolf.
Destiny leaned out, and her nose crinkled up as she sniffed the air. How did she don that breastplate so fast? I'd never seen the sniffing gesture before, and as she leaned through the tarp, Her head sliding over Priya's shoulder, I was struck by how she moved like a hesitant cat. While Priya's lines were angled with her elven heritage, Destiny was rounder in the cheeks, her lips a little thinner, and she had a cute little knob for her chin that jutted out just slightly. Priya's chin had a subtle dimple. My mind returned to the face missing from this team. Priya's eyes flickered at me for a second, and she gave me a subtle nod of understanding. Then she turned her head and pressed her full lips against Destiny's cheek.
Come, he's friendly.
Pulling the wolf forward by the hair beneath its neck, she stroked its haunches. Mrrr, Destiny hummed as her nose clawed on the wolf's. Is it true? Her nose twitched a few times. The wolf's nose twitched in much the same way. I had to suppress a laugh. It occurred how unlikely it was either of them could attack the wolf anyway. It wouldn't make sense if my pets could take friendly fire. Then again... Are you our new companion? Destiny raised her hand and brushed the wolf's hair. It lowered its head to allow the affection. A half-smile crept across her lips as she turned to peer at me. Your blessings abound, master. Then she jerked back. What is that? Oh, that, no big deal. Just a dead body. Priya and I explained the corpses were a mystery. I unsheathed my swords and displayed them. You are now dual-wielding swords. Your sword dual-wielding skill is rank 1. Everything else was junk, but these are in good shape. I tossed her the pouch tied to my belt. Destiny snatched it in a blur of motion. The contents jangled as she tinkered with her fingertips, then turned it over, emptying coins into her palm. Her lips moved as she counted. Gemini, there are 3 gold and 13 silvers here. This is no small amount of currency. Either they robbed others on the road. Priya finished the thought with a sneer.
Or they were paid to murder us.
Her head turned.
How have we made more enemies?
I shook my head. They're the men from town who tried to rob us.
Then where are their horses?
Priya asked.
We've been riding all night. If the town isn't close...
Destiny hummed. What is it? I asked. I travel with the daughter of an immortal guardian of the tree of Solara, and a being able to make others stronger with his mind. There are others who have this knowledge. She shook her head. I guess it was not until now that I realized I'd bound myself to the 2 people in the region most likely to be assassinated by those in power. Her green eyes flickered toward me, and a transparent layer within flipped up, her pupil growing as she peered. I read no fear there, but I felt like she was measuring me. You okay? Destiny stared for another long moment before she hummed again. My lifelong yearning for adventure bears fruit. It matters not who these men are, only that my sword is prepared for the next ones. Agreed, I said. We should train before the sun rises and then proceed to town, if it pleases you, master. Yeah, screw the rain. I can get down with that. They both threw me confused expressions.